Hey guys, your Dinner with the King co-host, Glenn Moore here, and I want to tell you about my other wrestling podcast. It's called the This Is Awesome Wrestling Show. I have over 100 episodes in the archive, and just recently, after a brief hiatus, I brought the show back. It's a weekly show. I recap everything going on in wrestling, but more of an interview format. I've had some interviews with some of the greatest wrestlers out there, from WWE to NXT, and also on the independent scene, and also TNA. From Kevin Owens to Seth Rollins to Sasha Banks, EC3, Terry Funk, yes, even Jerry has been on the show. There's plenty of interviews to go back and listen to, and also listen to the show every Thursday. It's the This Is Awesome Wrestling Show, and you can find it at podavenue.com/TIAWS, or just search This Is Awesome Wrestling Show on Google or any podcast app.
The following show is a Pod Avenue production. You are cordially invited to have dinner with the King. Pull up a chair and join WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler and Glenn Moore. Enjoy.
King, here we are, episode number 11, a very special episode we have for our listeners, and we're sitting here, and I was just on my phone pulling up all the countries that have downloaded the show worldwide, all the countries that have either played or downloaded the show each and every week.
You mean there's not just here in the United States, it can be downloaded all over the world?
Yeah, King. They can listen to it anywhere in the world as long as they have some sort of internet connection or data connection with their device or their computer.
That's amazing.
They can listen to the show anywhere. And I was scrolling through all the countries, King, and obviously United States, Canada, the UK, China, Japan, they are big countries, and we get a lot of downloads from them. But there were two countries that caught my eye and got my stomach rumbling, because back to back in our stats to these two countries, Turkey and Hungary, and I saw these two countries back to back, and I had the rush here to your barbecue spot here in Memphis to get some grub and do the show.
Oh. And so when you saw when you just see the words turkey and hungry, it makes you hungry and you want turkey? Is that what you're trying to tell us?
It makes me hungry.
We don't have turkey here. We have barbecue. Oh my gosh. I know you love to eat here. And let me give one more shameless plug to my restaurant here. It's in Memphis, Tennessee, of course, out in the Cordova area on Germantown Parkway. 159. That's 159B. That's my other restaurant. But we're at on the end of Germantown Parkway near Trinity. You can't miss it. It's a great little barbecue restaurant, and we are really proud. We've been open a couple of months now, and we've had a lot of great reviews, a lot of great food here. And you need to be my spokesperson, Glenn, because there's a consistent smile on your face whenever you walk through the door and start eating here.
Whenever I see a tweet, people wanting to find a spot to eat in Memphis, I always try to mention, hit up the barbecue company in Cordova if you're out that way, or definitely hit up downtown. So I am trying my best here from.
And you also mentioned that we're getting downloads and people listening all over the world. Well, next week, I'm going to give out the information next week on the podcast about how somebody, if you're listening out there and you think this sounds like a great little restaurant, you can have one in your own city, no matter where it is in the world. And you could, because we are going to be franchising the Jerry Lawler Memphis barbecue restaurants all over the United States. And hey, who says we can't go all over the world? So that we're going to give out that information next week. If anybody out there is listening and would like to own a franchise, it would be really cool. And speaking of you eating here, Glenn, I realize now too why you love your favorite. You always get the side of barbecue beans. You love the barbecue beans, right?
You know what? I cannot go out with a meal without barbecue beans, buddy.
I know that Glenn eats barbecue beans now so that later on he can have a bubble bath. And I figured that out. What are we going to talk about today? Today's a very special day, isn't it, Glenn?
Very special. Well, I wouldn't say special, but it's a good day to remember one of the greats, obviously, in my opinion, in professional wrestling. As we record this on May 23rd, it's been 18 years to the date of Owen Hart's passing, and we all know, all wrestling fans know about Owen Hart tragically passing away in the ring falling from the rafters of the arena in Kansas City at Over the Edge pay-per-view in '99. We're going to be talking about Owen today. This might be an Owen Hart podcast because there's plenty of stories about Owen, and obviously King, you were ringside when Owen fell from the rafters and passed away that night in Kansas City. And we're going to talk about the next night on Raw in St. Louis, the tribute show, where they all the videos of people talking about Owen and all the interviews since Owen's death. There hasn't been you can't find one bad thing about Owen. Obviously he was a prankster and a jokester. There's a lot of smiles that he brought to a lot of people's lives, and obviously he was very skilled in the ring. So we're going to be talking about that with Jerry, but also Owen had some time in Memphis. We talked about it earlier when you had the little feud with Bret Hart, but Owen Hart took the USWA Unified title from you, and you had a little feud with him in July of 1993. We're going to talk about that, play some promos, some classic Owen Hart promos, his time in Memphis. But Jerry, 18 years ago, like we said, to the date of Owen Hart's passing, and you were ringside.
It is. I mean, it's. I don't know. It just seems hard to believe that it has been 18 years since that night, because that night is still so vivid in my mind. And anybody that was especially anybody that was actually there live as we were, or anybody that were watching that pay-per-view then, you'll know that still has to stick in your mind as one of the most memorable things that you ever was. I mean, I've been in WWE now for going on 25 years. And people ask me, what's the one thing that stands out about your career in the WWE? And I always have to say the one thing that is most memorable, the one thing that you can't forget, was that night, Kemper Arena, 18 years ago with Owen. It was I think he was going to be wrestling the Godfather, and Owen was wrestling as the Blue Blazer, and it was like a superhero outfit and all of this stuff that he was wearing. So they were going to have Owen come basically flying down from the top of the arena. He had the cape and all of this kind of stuff. He was going to have him flying down from the top of the arena to face the Godfather in his match. And I don't know if anybody really knows exactly what caused the accident. The story that I heard was that they had Owen all the way up at the top of the arena, out on a catwalk. And I you know what, I'm going to go back in a few minutes and tell you about me doing a very similar entrance one time at the Mid-South Coliseum, which was, turns out to be like 10 stories up, where they lowered me down from the arena to the arena on floor with just a rope. And so, these kind of things had been done before. But the story that I heard was that when they had Owen, basically fastened into this harness that he wore, and then as he was going to be lowered down, there was an escape latch on the back, so that when Owen got to the ring floor, he could reach back and undo this latch, and of course then the harness would let him go, and they would pull it back up to the ceiling. And apparently when they got Owen harnessed up, and he's out, just dangling over where he was going to be lowered down, and then he tried to put his cape on. What I was told, that he tried to put the cape on because they couldn't harness him in with the cape on. So they tried to put the cape on to be lowered down. Apparently, as he was trying to put that cape on, that latch was triggered, and the harness just opened, and Owen fell. And so it's a horrible accident. And the way it all occurred, they had darkened the arena. JR and I are just sitting there. We introduced the fact that here's some words from the Blue Blazer, before his match with the Godfather, and they darkened the arena, and they showed a pre-taped promo or interview with Owen on the big Titantron, and then of course when that was over, he was going to come lowering down, flying into the ring. Well, as the arena was darkened. So that's the reason nobody that was actually there basically saw what happened, because everybody's eyes were looking back at the Titantron. JR and I, however, we don't we don't look at the Titantron. We watch everything on the monitor, which is basically down in front of us at the table. And JR was looking down, and I was looking at the monitor, and I don't know why, but for some reason I just kind of glanced up and was looking around. And as the promo was going, I just saw something. I couldn't say that I saw it. Saw Owen actually fall. I just saw like a blur, and I saw the referee. The referee was Jimmy Corderas. I saw the referee grab his head and sort of start staggering across the ring, and then I looked up, and I could see Owen lying in the ring with his outfit and cape and everything, just lying flat on his back in the ring. And I realized at that moment, I said, "Oh my gosh, Owen must have fallen." And I remember elbowing JR, and he looked over at me, and because our mics were hot, our mics were live, I just mouthed to JR. I just said, "He fell." And JR looked at me all puzzled, like, "What?" And I said, "Owen fell." And I jumped up, took my headsets off, and I jumped up. I went over to the timekeeper, who was just a few feet away. And like I said, everybody was watching the Titantron. And I went over to the timekeeper, and I said, "Hey, I think Owen fell. You need to go to the back and tell him that he fell." And he jumped up and headed to the back, to the gorilla position where Vince and everyone else was. And I went straight on up to the ring. And as I got right there at the ring, the referee had realized, Jimmy Corderas had refereed, and he was kind of kneeled down there looking at Owen. And excuse me, Owen was just, he was literally lying, just motionless, basically flat on his back. And but I remember he had his arm was kind of from his elbow to his hand. His arm was kind of up off the mat, and just like he was like sort of reaching out. And by that, when I saw that his arm was up, I thought, well, he's, his arm's up. He may be moving or whatever. I think he's okay. Only to realize later that his arm was, I guess the bone was shattered. His arm was like stuck in that position. But then as I was standing there looking at Owen and looking at his face, I could literally see the blood in Owen's face, just I guess the force of gravity. Once it's no longer, your heart's not beating anymore and it's pumping the blood through, I could just see his face turn gray from like the tip of his nose all the way down. It literally just turned gray as the blood was settling, in his body. Because apparently what happened when Owen hit with such impact, it just ruptured his heart, and he was dead on impact there. I mean, from he fell from such a great distance. And so I knew, I realized at that moment right then that Owen was gone. Excuse me. And so I went back over to the announce table, and by that time paramedics were jumping in the ring, and I say that when I saw that blood coming out, they took Owen. He had the blue blazer mask on, and when they took that mask off, that's when you could see his face just turn gray. And so I went back over to the announce table, and I think I don't know exactly what, we had taken a break and was showing something else at that particular time. And I told JR, I said, "Man, I'm telling you, I think Owen's gone." And they put him on the ambulance. Put him in the ambulance and rushed him to the hospital and tried to, I think they tried everything they could to revive him. But of course, he was gone. And it was just, I can't even describe the feeling, knowing, somebody as great a person as Owen Hart was, to be right there and witness, them passing away was just, it was, like I said, in all the years that I've been in the WWE, that's something that has been the most unforgettable thing to me.
Geez, I was, 15 at the time, and I wasn't watching the pay-per-view live, but obviously a lot of friends, this is before texting, were calling, they were watching and, spreading the news. And obviously there was some time before that transpired to where you guys were told that Owen Hart had passed away, but but just by looking at him, you knew that he was gone.
Yeah, and then people have asked. I mean, how did you guys, and some people even ask, why did they continue on with the pay-per-view at this point?
Right.
And you got to realize this is a show that was being beamed all over the world, and it was just not something that you could, that you could just say, oh, we're done, we're off the air or anything. And in everyone's defense, at the time, as I said, nobody had been told definitely that Owen was gone. I mean, they rushed him to the hospital in the hopes that he could be revived, and that and that this wasn't going to be as horrible a tragedy as it turned out to be. But so that was the that was the reason that the pay-per-view continued, along with the old saying, the show must go on. But everybody was in the hopes of that this was not going to be as bad as it turned out to be. But that's why the thing went on. And then, as you said, some time went on, and the show went on, and then we got definitive word that Owen had passed away. And I got to give JR all the credit. JR handled that part. I mean, I couldn't even really talk, but JR handled it so well. I mean, he just it told everybody on the pay-per-view that was watching, just told the world, what had happened, and that Owen had passed away. And it was, oh man, it was just tough. Owen was just such a great guy. You and I talked. We've talked yesterday about Owen, and you can't find anybody that will say anything bad about Owen Hart, and that's really unusual in the wrestling business. But the time I got there in '93, when I first met Owen, I mean, he was one of the most likable guys, and I tell everybody to this day, of all the friends that I made in the WWE, I mean, Owen was, he was one of the coolest guys to be around, the most fun to be around. I remember, he was the guy that I sought out just to hang with, because our personalities seemed so similar. He loved hearing me tell about the ribs that we used to pull down, and the jokes and the pranks and things that we were famous for down in Memphis, in our Memphis territory, and he tried to implement them up there in the WWE. But I mean, he was the king of the ribs and the king of the pranks there in the WWE. He was known for that, and he and I were just he was just a fun guy to be around, and that led to the fact that he and I. He was one of the first guys from the WWE to come down and work with us there in Memphis, at our territory. Came down and worked a program with me in the summer of '93, and we had a lot of fun.
Really quick, wrapping up the whole, his death in those couple of days. Who was in your ear? I mean, I know there's many people in your ear when you're doing commentary. Who was the one that told you in your ear that Owen has passed officially?
Man, I mean, that part of it I can't remember, but I'm almost certain. I'm almost certain it was actually Vince that came on and told JR and I that he said, "Well, guys, we just got the official word that Owen has died," and so and it was as simple as that. And then JR just took it from there, and he handled it, I think, tremendously. It was just one of the hardest moments that, and you can imagine being in this business for 46 years. I almost witnessed the death of my very best friend, Sam Bass, in a car wreck. Came along about 10 minutes after he had been killed in a car wreck, and stood there and watched his car go up in flames. And oh man, I was being at ringside with Darren Drosdorf when he took that bump and broke his neck and got paralyzed. And so I've seen, over the years, some really, some tragedies in this business, but that's just life. It just, things like that are going to happen. And so, but of all of those things, being there that night and having to inform the fans about what happened to Owen, and then the tribute show the next night. Oh my gosh, I mean, those were some of the toughest moments that I've had in my career.
There were no storylines that night. It was all, I think people have gone on to say in interviews that was a night of, hey, if you want to wrestle, you can. If you don't, we understand. You know, it was all just, you know, matches for tribute to Owen. And obviously you being on commentary. And I think at the end of the show, and I think the whole show is available on the WWE Network if people wanted to go back and watch it. And the pay-per-view, obviously, you know, the part, you know, obviously Owens, the footage of that will never be shown. But, you know, you know, saying your words at the end of the show and JR, you know, breaking down. As a kid, it was hard to watch, and I can only imagine, you know, obviously.
Well, I mean, it was, yeah, and because it was, you know, everybody's honest feelings were laid out bare in front of the world right there. I remember especially Jeff Jarrett and Deborah. Just, I mean, this, like you said, so many of the superstars just couldn't. You know, they couldn't hold it. They just broke down on the air. It was just one of the most emotional nights because everybody loved Owen Hart, and you know, it was. I mean, it's tough right now to even think about it. It's just it's still hard to believe that Owen is not here. He was just such a wonderful person.
And I know there's a lot of people have, you know, called for Owen Hart to be inducted in the WWE Hall of Fame, and him to be more recognized for his career, especially when they go back and talk about the Attitude Era or you know great champions in WWF, WWE, and Owen's name seems to be left out. You know, his name should be brought up more. Do you think that whatever's going on between the family and WWE and whatever's happening behind closed doors, that Owen Hart will be in the WWE Hall of Fame sometime?
Oh, I think without a doubt he will be, certainly deserving. Probably should have been already, but feelings were so. Feelings were so raw between Owen's family and the WWE. And when something horrible like that happens, I think we're just such a society that we all of a sudden look around and say, well, things don't just happen. Somebody has to be to blame here, and I think that was part of the. This is just my own opinion, though. I think that was part of the family's feelings that that the WWE was to blame. But without a doubt, nobody forced Owen to do this. This was I don't really know who came up with the idea for this entrance or anything like that. But there's no way that anybody would ever say, hey, you're gonna be forced to do this or that or whatever. But there were just hard feelings between the family, and those have gone on for some length of time. Hopefully, and I'm not privy to if that's been resolved or not. Hopefully it has. I do know that in 2015 the WWE put out a DVD, the Owen Hart Heart of Gold DVD. That was a tremendous DVD. So maybe the relationship has been smoothed over. Hopefully that it has, because like I said, everybody would love to see Owen Hart in the WWE Hall of Fame, and I think without a doubt that will definitely happen one day.
Are there any I know you said you guys were similar, your personalities, and he loved to hear stories about all the ribs and jokes you guys played in Memphis, but Owen was very known for pulling pranks on people, especially in WWE. Did he ever pull anything on you, or do you have any kind of cohesion with Owen Hart pulling ribs on you, or being a part of evolving yourself in him?
No, he never did. And that was I think that was one of the reasons that there was sort of that mutual respect. He knew that I was a big ribber, and I knew that he was. So there really is an old saying: you can't rib a ribber, and that it was like somebody that was expecting something, a rib to be pulled on him all the time. It was really hard to do that. So I think we had that mutual respect for each other, and he just would love to hear stories about because we would do some outlandish things. I mean, just to pass the time on the road. We would have to spend so much time driving. Like if you drove from Memphis to Nashville, it's like almost a 3-hour drive, one way, and then you would go and you do your match, you do your show, which would last maybe 2.5 hours, and then you get in your car and you'd have that 3-hour drive all the way back home. So you'd spend 6 hours getting to and from a match that lasted maybe your match itself maybe last 20 minutes. So there was just that. There was a lot of time on the road, and we would find ways to amuse ourselves. And like I was pretty notorious. I would always like to drive alone. I would travel alone, and I would just, I mean, Owen would always say, well, what's some of the things, you know, and I told him that I went through a phase where I don't know who I got it from, but I got a blue light, you know, and I would put it on my dashboard, and I would be driving, and I would see another, like I would pass one of the other wrestlers, and I would drive on ahead, you know, a few miles real fast, and I would get off at an exit, and then I'd wait for them to go by, and then I'd come back on the, you know, down the exit ramp and pull up behind them real fast and turn on the blue light, and boy, they'd pull over. I remember one night coming back from Nashville, I pulled over Kamala, and he was just kind of new in the business, and he's driving along, and I pulled him over to the side of the road, and he stops, and this was back in the day, you know, used to. If you got pulled over and stopped, you had to get out of your car and come back and talk to the police officer. You know, now you don't get out of your car. But so I pull him over with the blue light, sitting there behind him, and he steps out of his car, and I lean my head out the window, and I said, face the front of your car and put your hands on top of your head. So he's like, oh my gosh, you know, so here's big old Kamala, James Harris. He's got his hands on top of his head, and he's facing the front of his car. And I get out and I walk up behind him, and I start frisking him, right? Start patting him down. And now he's thinking it's a Tennessee Highway Patrolman's got him stopped here. And then all of a sudden, I goose him real hard right in the butt. You know, he's like, what? He turns around and he says, oh, Jerry. And he starts chasing me, man. And I started running. So, I mean, I would just do things like that. And then Owen loved to hear those kind of stories. We also would play a game like, if we stopped at a McDonald's on the way, you'd buy like an extra milkshake or an extra soda pop or all this stuff, just anything that would make a big mess, and we would have a game where and sometimes buy I was famous for this. I'd buy like a dozen eggs, and so I would drive my car, and I would get in front of somebody, maybe Bill Dundee or somebody that was like, you know, in the car right behind me, and then I'd slow down, and they'd be trying to pass me on either side, and then I'd open my window and I'd start chunking eggs or whatever up in the air where it'd come down and hit their windshield. And so the game was, you know, if you got points if you did something where they had to turn their windshield wipers on to clear their windshield. But sometimes, like if you threw a milkshake and it hit right in the front of their windshield, they would have to actually pull over. So you won the game if you made the other driver pull off the road to clean off his windshield. So, I mean, and then Owen and I, we started doing some of that stuff once I got up there in the WWE, and we got pretty well reprimanded for it. They didn't put up with that, but you know, it was so he and I talked a lot about the ribs that we pulled down in Tennessee. He loved those stories. And another thing, this was a great rib, but it was he would love to pull ribs or pranks on the fans as well. Owen was notorious for he would say I'm just saving money, but he would befriend the fans just blatantly and have them pay for anything. I mean, have them pay for his food, a hotel room, or he'd even go, I mean, instead of paying for a hotel room, Owen was famous for saying, "Hey, can I, I'm stuck here. Can you put me up for the night or whatever?" He would just ask fans if he could like stay at their house, and of course the fans were like they were tickled to death to do something like this. But Owen just looked at it as a funny way to save a hotel room or to save on a meal, you know, and so whenever he and I would go in a restaurant together, he would always start talking to a fan and have them pay for the meal. So he was great. I would just laugh, and I would know exactly what he was doing, you know. But then, so to me, that was a rib that Owen would pull on the fans.
Talking about ribs, and not the food ribs, but ribs backstage, the pranks that you guys pull on each other. I have to ask you about a rib that was pulled on you back in '93 in the WWE, and I'm not sure if you, because you weren't too happy about it, but did somebody use your crown as a toilet?
Apparently that happened. I didn't actually see it, and you know that is an old time rib. That rib goes way back.
Who did it?
Well, I never really heard it. It was either Steve Kern or maybe the two guys living up to their reputation and living up their name that I'd heard either the Nasty Boys or Steve Keirn, and I couldn't believe that it was Steve Keirn who was wrestling there as the Skinner, because he had worked for me down in the Memphis territory as Steve Keirn and Stan Lane, the Fabulous Ones, and there may have been a little thinking that, hey, look, here's a chance to get back at our former boss, that we weren't always happy working for, weren't always happy with the payoffs or whatever. But or either it was the Nasty Boys, who I don't remember if they had really worked for us. They were just famous for those kind of repulsive ribs. And so anyway, yeah, one day I had just been up there a short time, and I don't know where I was or what I was doing, but anyway, Jimmy Hart came to me and told me that this had happened. He said, "King, you don't want to go back you don't want to go see your crown." So I just went and I just went to Vince and said, "Hey, Vince," and this was at a time in early '93 that Vince had asked me to come there, and and so I just went to Vince and said, "Hey, if this kind of stuff is going to go on, I just don't need to be here. I'll just go back to Memphis or whatever." So apparently Vince, I don't know if he put the word out in general or if he told the people that were involved, hey, this kind of stuff is not going to be tolerated or whatever. But it was just one of those things. Yeah, somebody took a dump in my crown. But
so what'd you do with the crown?
I never saw it. I never saw it. Jimmy Hart told me that it happened, and I just, but hey, I always had 30 or 40 crowns at home, so it was no big deal.
Jeez. But I feel like with you, because, '93, you were new in WWE, but you had a long career. You were already established as, a top guy in Memphis and known worldwide. And you obviously had the Andy Kaufman series and whatnot. I feel like, out of respect, people, you leave the King alone. You leave Jerry Lawler alone because he's an established dude.
Well, but that's why I say I really think that it was probably one of the guys that used to work for me down in Memphis. Yeah. And it was almost not so much a rib as it was a revenge type prank. Here I'll get even with Lawler for him being on the main event instead of me, or him making more money than I did in Memphis. I don't know. That's the kind of situation I thought it was. But I did really I don't know. I did really pretty much have that kind of relationship with most of the guys there in the WWE, because they did realize that I came from Memphis and still owned, still part owner of the Memphis territory and that sort of thing. And a lot of those guys thought, hey, I may wind up working for this guy again, so I better not pull any ribs on him.
Does that? I mean, I know you're not part of the locker room that much anymore, and you do some pre-shows and some commentary here and there. But is it obviously we live in a PC world, and people can't take jokes as like they used to. But are ribs still a thing now, or do you hear ribs that happen today? Or
absolutely not. It's so sad, and that's one of the parts of the business that I really miss. But no, there are no ribs anymore. It's just, I mean, and all of the new guys that are coming into the business, it's just not, they never even heard of that type of lifestyle in the locker rooms and on the road and that sort of thing. Of course, you don't drive these trips anymore very much. It's all flights and things like that. And so, yeah, the fun of the road on the road camaraderie that the guys used to have together, that's all gone. It's all gone with the wind. It's all it's over. It's so and to me it's just a big part of the business that I miss. I mean, that was part of the business that was actually fun, as opposed to just the the in-ring work and all of the stuff that you had to do. The ribs that were just sort of part of the relaxation and of the business is a thing of the past.
All right, so King, do you miss those days? That's the question.
Well, it's funny. I sort of do, but then when I start now thinking back about some of the ribs got so serious that no, I don't miss those days. I can remember maybe one of the most famous ribs ever happened, or several of them happened, on the infamous Flight from Hell, which was back in 2002 that I was a part of. And the rib I'm talking about was when X-Pac chopped off the hair, the famous mullet of Michael P.S. Hayes. And now, if anybody knew Michael Hayes, they knew that and still to this day, the thing he treasured most in life was his hair. I mean, that was his trademark. And then, of course, now he's up in the WWE, and he's got this long hair. As a matter of fact, he valued that hair so much that one time when he was wrestling here in Memphis, I think it was against maybe me and Dundee, but anyway, he and Terry Gordy, were wrestling us, and I threw the fireball. I threw fire on Michael Hayes, and it singed a little bit of his hair, just a little bit, not a big deal, and he went berserk. I mean, he came back to the locker room. He wanted to fight everybody. He came back to the locker room, and he was screaming that he was going to sue us. I mean, literally. He said, I'll never work for you guys again, and I'll sue this whole company. This is my hair. This is my trademark. That's how much he valued his hair. Well, the big rib was on that flight from hell. Michael Hayes fell asleep. Everybody had been drinking a little bit too much, with the exception of me, of course. Don't drink, but that way I got to watch all the things that went down. And so sometime after Michael Hayes had been asleep for 30 minutes or so, X-Pac, and I can't remember if he was dared to do it or if it was just his idea or what, but he pulled the biggest rib of all time. He got a pair of scissors and he cut off Michael Hayes' hair. And when the flight was over and when Hayes woke up and realized what had happened, oh my gosh, it was, that's the main reason it was called the flight from hell. There was hell to pay after that. And it went for a while. I mean, nobody would admit to, or nobody would tell who did it or what happened or whatever. But, that was one of the big ribs that I don't miss. I mean, and that was sort of a kind of thing that would happen. Guys would fall asleep in a locker room or on a trip, and somebody would shave their eyebrows off or shave part of their mustache off or something like that. That was just, that was kind of a funny rib. But that one went with him cutting all his hair completely off. That went a little too far. So no, I don't miss those kind of ribs. But you know what? Let me just tell you, speaking of the ribs and shaving eyebrows and shaving hair off and everything, what you had to do, you had to have a good sharp razor to do that, Glenn, so that the guy wouldn't wake up. And that reminds me, good sharp razors reminds me of something that I have just started with, and you need to start with. You know what I'm talking about?
I think I know.
It's Dollar Shave Club. I'm telling you, Glenn, you got to do what I've done. I've joined the Dollar Shave Club. I mean, it really is the smartest choice that I've ever made. Let me just explain it to you for just a second, so that even you will realize that it's a no-brainer choice. You got to do this. I mean, I'm still looking. You still got that beard, and you were probably tired of shaving is the reason that you grew that beard, because you were tired of going to the store to buy a cheap disposable razor that gave you a cheap shave, or maybe you were tired of spending a fortune on razors. That's one thing that I hated to do with all of these gimmicky shaving techniques that you really didn't need. So you need to do what I've done. Join the Dollar Shave Club. I mean, look, when I use my Dollar Shave Club executive razor with their Dr. Carver shave butter, I mean, it's just not the kind of butter that you eat, Glenn. It's shave butter. You put it on your face, it makes it a perfect shave. I mean, the blade just gently glides across my face, and it gives me such a smooth shave, the smoothest shave that I've ever gotten with all of those expensive razors that I've used in the past. This is even better shave. Now, here's how you can make the smarter choice by joining the Dollar Shave Club. Because for a limited time, new members get their first month of the executive razor with a tube of Dr. Carver shave butter for only $5. And that's free shipping as well. Only $5. And then after that, razors are just a few bucks a month. That's a $15 value for only $5. And I'm just going to tell you, there's no hidden fees and no commitments. You can cancel anytime you like. So it's a great deal. It's the Dollar Shave Club, and that's exactly what you need to do, and you need to do it right now. Now, here's how you get this offer. Go to dollarshaveclub.com/king. dollarshaveclub.com/king. That's easy to remember, and this is a great offer. You need to join the Dollar Shave Club today.
I'm sure we're going to do a whole episode on the Flight from Hell, King, in a future episode. But could you imagine if Owen was on the Flight from Hell?
No, I really hate to think of what would have. There were so many ribs pulled on that flight. I mean, and fights and just all sorts of crazy things that went on there. Had Owen Hart been on that, who knows? The plane might have crashed. I don't know. But it would have been funny. I can assure you. But one of the things that I loved about Owen, I mean, once I met him up there, I wanted to bring him down to Memphis and let the Memphis fans get acquainted with this guy. I mean, he was such a talented guy in the ring, and of course, he went on there to become the king of the ring and in the WWE and all that sort of stuff. And I've got to one of my favorite pictures is me interviewing Owen on the King's Court. We're both dressed in our regal outfits. We both got our crowns on, and it was the WWE King Jerry Lawler and the King of the Ring Owen Hart. But in 1993. Up there in the WWE, I think I had a couple of matches against Owen, but then of course once he became the King of the Ring, he turned into the quintessential bad guy in the WWE, and he was great at that. But when we brought him down to Memphis, we always had the role reversals. At the time in the WWE, Owen was a big fan favorite, and I was the big bad guy, but down in Memphis, I was the fan favorite, so anytime we brought in somebody from WWE, they were the bad guys, and that was the case in the summer of '93. We brought Owen down to Memphis, and he actually won the Unified Heavyweight Championship from me, and we had a series of matches, and a really, really fun opponent there. And the people in Memphis, they just despised Owen. He was great. I mean, and he was great on interviews. I think maybe we can hear some of the things that he had to say to the people of Memphis.
I don't know how he did it. Some kind of way he had some comments. I don't know how I had much to say after that, but here's Owen Hart.
Oh, yeah, you hurt me a little bit, but I'm still standing, and I'm still standing proud, and I'm still standing tall, Lawler. And I'll tell you what, there's a new king in town, and that's the King of Harts, Owen Hart. And Jerry Lawler, I don't know what these people believe in you for, because you're nothing but a coward. I sped right from the airplane. I came running from a taxi, and I ran in the ring because I'm a true champion. I didn't want to be late, and I sped, and I put my belt on the line against you, Jerry Lawler. And you tried to cripple me. What kind of a man are you? What kind of a coward? There's only one real man, and that's me, and that's this man right here, my manager, Burt. And we're #1 in Memphis. You're going down, Lawler, next time. Anything goes. I want a no disqualification match because you want to try to pile drive me and hurt me. Well, I'll tell you something, Lawler. It's going to be me hurting you next time.
So what the deal is, punk? He took 8 of your best. Let's see if you can take 10 of Owen Hart's best, punk.
So, King, he had his manager, Burt. Who's this Burt guy?
Well, Burt Prentiss. I mean, Burt Prentiss is a guy that's worked for us in Memphis and still works for us down here in the Tennessee territory. And he's a promoter, and he's got a big show coming up. We'll go ahead and plug it. He's got a big show coming up June the 3rd in Jackson, Tennessee, at the Oman Arena. And it's gonna be a big Memphis tribute show. We got Coco Beware is going to be on the card. We got superstar Bill Dundee. Our old-time referee Jerry Calhoun's going to be there. I'm going to be wrestling Dangerous Doug Gilbert inside a cage, and my manager is going to be Mouth of the South Jimmy Hart. And so it's going to be a great show. That's June the 3rd in Jackson, Tennessee, and that's who Burt Prentiss is running that show in Jackson and promoting it. But at the time back in in '93, Burt was the big bad guy manager in Memphis. Everybody despised Burt Prentiss, and he was. We put him in the corner of Owen Hart. And as you heard from that interview, that was right after I think I had won the Unified Championship back from Owen Hart. And in the process, I think they said 8, but I believe in the match I gave Owen 4 pile drivers. And of course, during that interview, he was wearing one of those Andy Kaufman neck braces.
It was great promo. And he won the USWA Unified World Heavyweight Championship from Papa Shango.
Oh yeah.
And you were feuding with him, and then it was intertwined, and that was great back, in the territories. And in WWF, WWE was obviously on a major platform, but to have guys still come down to Memphis and other territories and wrestle and be a part of storylines and be intertwined with WWE. I mean, like I said, we talked about this before, but you don't see that happening now today. But it was great to see that, and it was so interesting because the roles were reversed. And like with you at Vince, he was the good guy up there, you were the bad guy. But in Memphis, they were reversed. It was interesting.
It was, and I think that no, it's not where the term Bizarro World came from. That came from Superman comic books. But it was almost like and Vince used to love to use that term. It was like a bizarro world in the fact that everything was backwards, that everything was reversed. And you know what's ironic? You mentioned that Owen Hart down in Memphis won the USWA Championship from Papa Shango, who was wrestling for us in Memphis, who later on went to the WWE and became the Godfather. And that's who Owen Hart was wrestling against the Godfather on that fateful night at Kemper Arena.
Jeez. And then this set up your little feud with Bret, and obviously Bret with Owen. Bret came down. You guys feuded with Bret. We talked about this on the previous episodes, but also it kind of culminated with Owen and Bret going at it with their with Owen's jealousy of Bret, and Owen thinking that he was the better brother, and that storyline that went on up in WWE. So.
Yeah, one of my most memorable matches that I had in Memphis was a cage match against Bret the Hitman Hart. Yeah. And in that match, Owen comes down and climbs the cage and gets in, and the two of them start double teaming me. Then it just really got hectic from there. I'm not sure if it was Jeff Jarrett maybe that came down to my rescue, and then all of a sudden Giant Gonzalez showed up. We had all of these WWE characters coming down and invading Memphis, and it was a great time. I mean, it was awesome, and as I said before, it was really fun for Bret Hart and Owen Hart. They admitted later that it was really fun because that was the first time that they had ever been, that have a taste of the fans being not behind them, the fans being totally against them, and it was something new to them, and it was something that they really enjoyed, especially Owen.
All right, King. So before we wrap it up, I got to know: did Owen pull any of his ribs when he was down in Memphis?
No, once again, I got to say, I really think it was the old adage, you can't rib a ribber. I was waiting for it. I was expecting it anytime, every Monday when Owen, the times that he was down there, I was expecting some sort of rib. But I just think that it was one of those situations where, out of respect, he didn't ever show that side of himself down there. We had a great time whenever Owen came to Memphis, and we had some great matches, drew some big crowds, and that was what it was all about back then. But I mean, of all the guys that I've worked with over the years, of course, Sam Bass, my manager, I miss him like crazy. There was another guy, Plowboy Frazier, who was Uncle Elmer up in the WWE. I miss him like crazy. But Owen Hart, I mean, there's a guy I think of so often, and I miss as much as anybody that I've ever worked with.
Now let's just transition from '93 and to present day. And here we are in 2017, and Jinder Mahal is WWE Champion.
Wow.
He won it from Randy Orton.
Well, that was a shock, wasn't it?
I'm completely surprised. And I know he's worked hard to improve himself in the ring and also his physique, and he's looking almost Scott Steinerish, looking freakish. But the guy has worked hard and getting some great heel reaction, from the crowd. He has a little stable, the Singh brothers. He has a little stable going on, but him becoming WWE Champion, taking the belt away from Randy Orton at the Backlash pay-per-view on Sunday. I know a lot of people are, voicing their opinion, but I got to know, the King. What does the King think about Jinder Mahal being champion?
Well, you know what? I think it's great. And the fact that one of the worst things that can happen in the wrestling business is when you fall into, and believe me, it is easy to have it happen, when you fall into a rut, so to speak, of where the fans can figure out what's going to happen next. I mean, that is the worst thing that can happen to you in the wrestling business, because you want the fans to expect the unexpected, not to expect the obvious and then that happen. And so I think that was one of those situations where, nobody expected it. And you're right, Jinder Mahal has come back into the WWE now, and he looks like a totally different person. And I worked with Jinder when he was here before. I really enjoyed him. He's a great guy. He's like you said, a hard worker, and you can tell that he's put in the time needed to. I mean, he's got to be one of the best looking physiques in the WWE right now. I mean, he just looks amazing. And to me, that's, that is a big part of anything, is your presentation, is what you look like. You get that one chance to make a first impression. And anybody that sees Jinder Mahal for the first time, I don't care what you say, you got to be impressed. And then another thing where I think it's good business overall is, the WWE is expanding worldwide now, and India is a huge market for the WWE. Millions of wrestling fans and WWE fans over in India, and so I think this is a great thing for the the branching out on a worldwide basis of the WWE, showing the diversity of the company. All of a sudden, you have a champion from India. It's amazing. It's cool, and the fact that it was unexpected, I think makes it even more exciting.
Really quick, also in the news, your good buddy, good old JR, returned to the commentary table, and he called the match at the NXT Takeover in Chicago. He called the United Kingdom Championship match. I watched the show to hear JR because he called WrestleMania match, but he hasn't been obviously been on the air commentating that much in recent years, but. It was good to hear JR. He just sounded really subdued. He didn't seem like his own self. The fiery guy. With his catchphrases. He was very good, obviously, but very subdued. But I would people.
Well, I think hopefully good old JR is holding back a little bit until they put he and I together for some kind of special match.
You know what?
But
we get tweets. Dinner with King gets a lot of tweets. Calling for you and JR to be reunited at the commentary table.
Oh, I think without a doubt, now that they've re-signed JR, I think that will happen somewhere down the line for a special match. I mean, I was really excited to see that they brought JR back for this match. But in looking back on the way you thought his commentary sounded, I mean, that's a situation when you just get thrown in there. I can tell you from personal experience, when you just get thrown in there for a match and you haven't been emotionally invested. JR loves that term. I learned that from him. But you haven't been emotionally invested in that match by calling the build up to that big match on a weekly basis. Then it is hard to all of a sudden be that over the top and that once again, that term invested in the match as you would have been had you had the opportunity to announce and call all of those matches leading up to that big championship match. But I was so glad to see that JR is back, because I honestly feel that that's going to, just open the door to the possibility of JR and I be reunited for some special match at some special pay-per-view or something down the line. And I think that'll be cool. Putting JR and I back together again should be special. And so I just think that the more they use JR, the more they're going to get fan reaction, and like you said, we get tweets, and I'm sure that our fans, if you haven't, hey, let the WWE know if you'd like to see JR and I united for a special reunited for a special match. Hey, the WWE, they listen. Trust me, they listen to social media like a hawk. I mean, all you got to do is put that hashtag WWE in there, or if you tweet at the different. Heck, everybody's got a Twitter account, and you can get to these people personally. So let them know your opinion, and if you'd like to see reuniting of JR and I for a special match, let them know. I really think it'll happen.
Any plans for you to be on WWE programming anytime soon?
Well, I don't know. They just call me. I mean, I may be at the next Raw pay-per-view. That's the great thing about my situation with them right now. I have always been a last-minute sort of guy my entire career, and they know that, and they know that they can call me at the last minute, and that's what happened on the last one. I just got a call and said, hey, can you be – I mean, literally the week before, they said, can you be in San Jose for the pay-per-view and do Raw Talk afterwards? And I said, yeah, I'll be there. And so, I've done I think the last 2 Raw Talks. So maybe that may be where you'll be seeing me down the road here. And I think we got the Raw pay-per-view coming up in 2 weeks, or less than 2 weeks.
All right, wrapping this up. I know the check is here, but you're going to be in Columbus on this Friday, and you're going to be here in Cleveland or over the weekend.
What do you mean here in Cleveland? You still think whenever you come down to Memphis that you're still in Cleveland? I'm going to be up in Cleveland.
I'm sorry. Up in Cleveland.
Yes, I am very excited. This Friday, Columbus, Ohio. I'm going to be throwing out the first pitch at the Columbus Clippers game Friday night. So come on out, and we're going to be taking pictures, signing autographs, and we're going to have a great time. You know, there's no place I'd rather be than a baseball stadium, man. I mean, once you go out and you're on a beautiful night or day or afternoon or whatever at a baseball stadium, there's just not a better place to be in the world. So come on out, Columbus, Ohio, Friday night, Columbus Clippers game. Then you're right, I'm coming up Saturday to Cleveland. Going to be at the Indians game on Saturday afternoon and on Sunday afternoon. Is it Sunday? Yeah, Sunday afternoon. I think they're both afternoon games. And you know me, Glenn, I'm going to try to get down on the field and get involved. What they have they still have those races with the ketchup and mustard and all of those guys racing every game.
No, please don't tell me you're going to be racing. Please, come on, King.
I think I could beat any of those guys.
I don't think so, King.
You don't think so?
No, I think we would have another zombie experience if that happened.
Well, that would be worth watching as well. So come on out, folks. It's not the Walking Dead. It may be the Running Dead right there in a race with ketchup.
You're gonna have Francisco Lindor doing CPR on you by the dugout.
Hey, what an honor! That would be great. No, it got to be Cookie Carrasco. He's my buddy up there, man. I gotta talk to Carlos Carrasco and have him help me out.
Well, hopefully you're doing something with the Indians, because you being growing up here in Cleveland, being a huge Tribe fan, it would be disrespectful if the Indians don't do something with you when you're here. Well, up there.
We'll see. Just come on out Saturday and Sunday. You may see the King in action. If I do, I want to keep it a surprise, right?
Maybe you can pile driver slider.
Yeah. Oh no! Come on.
I hate slider.
Glenn, that's terrible. Now that's disrespectful.
All right, King, you pay the check, and I'm going to let all our listeners know what you mentioned before, and that's Dollar Shave Club. Great shave for a great price. And like you said, new members can get their first month of the Executive Razor and a tube of the Dr. Carver Shave Butter for only $5, and you get free shipping. After that, razors are just a few bucks a month. That's a $15 value for only $5. And you can get yours at dollarshaveclub.com/king. That's dollarshaveclub.com/king.
All right. That's enough. We got to get out of here.
We got to get out of here. All right, gang. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, Glenn. Thanks, man.
The preceding show is a Pod Avenue production